Echoes of Cassandra. The first thing Captain Juno Voss noticed was the silence. Normally the bridge of the Hephaestus hummed with activity, status reports, navigation updates, the occasional joke between crew members during the long stretches between systems. But now everyone stood frozen, eyes fixed on the main viewscreen where a pulsing signal overlay the image of EX-2187, an unremarkable rocky planet orbiting a distant yellow star. "Play it again," Juno ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. Lieutenant Zara Nori, their communications specialist, nodded and tapped her console. The signal emerged once more from the speakers, not quite sound, not quite data, something that existed uncomfortably between the two. It made Juno's teeth ache. 17 minutes, 43 seconds, said Commander Nathaniel Okonkwo, her first officer. "That's how long it's been broadcasting on repeat. And we're sure it's not natural?" Juno asked, though she already knew the answer. Nothing natural pulsed with such perfect, deliberate rhythm. "Not a chance," Zara replied. "The pattern is too complex. And Captain, it's changing. Evolving. Like it's learning our communication protocols." Juno turned to Eldon Reed, their xenolinguist. He sat hunched over his station, eyes closed, fingers pressed against his temple. "Reed? Any insights?" "It's not just a signal," he said without opening his eyes. "It's a warning." "Warning about what?" Reed finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "I don't know yet. But there's a word that keeps repeating. Closest translation would be dormant. Or maybe, sleeping." The Hephaestus wasn't an exploration vessel. Owned and operated by Helios Mining Corporation, its primary mission was resource extraction, surveying uninhabited planets for valuable minerals and setting up initial drilling operations. First contact protocols weren't even in their manual. But standard procedure was clear: unknown signals meant potential danger. "We should back off, establish a quarantine perimeter," Juno said, already reaching for the ship's comm. "I'll notify corporate that we need a proper first contact team." 3 hours later, the response from Helios headquarters arrived. Juno read it twice, certain she'd misunderstood the first time. "Proceed with survey operations. Signal likely automated remnant from failed Asimov Corporation expedition, circa 2189. Planetary resources estimated at 28 billion credits. Preliminary scans authorized." Juno's hand tightened around the datapad. "They're not even acknowledging the possibility this could be an active alien transmission." Nathaniel crossed his arms. "Of course not. That would trigger mandatory notification to the Interstellar Council. Then they'd lose mining rights." "Typical corporate thinking," muttered Chief Engineer Tamar Rossi from her corner of the bridge. "Profits first, survival second." "We have our orders," Juno said, though the words tasted bitter. "But we're taking every precaution. Full hazard protocols. And if anything seems off, we abort immediately." The landing shuttle departed 6 hours later with a minimal crew. Juno insisted on leading the expedition herself, along with Nathaniel, Eldon, Tamar, and Dr. Viraj Patel, their medical officer. The descent through EX-2187's thin atmosphere was smooth, almost eerily so, as if the planet were drawing them down to a specific location. They landed on a flat plain surrounded by eroded mountains, near the source of the signal. Initial readings showed a breathable atmosphere, moderate radiation levels, and no detectable biological hazards. But as they stepped out in their environmental suits, Juno couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. "Signals coming from that ridge," Eldon said, pointing to a distant outcropping. "Half a kilometer." The trek was silent, each step raising small clouds of rusty dust. As they approached the ridge, features began to emerge from what had appeared to be natural rock formations, too regular, too purposeful to be the work of erosion. "Those are ruins," Nathaniel whispered, his voice filled with awe. "Artificial structures." Ancient columns, partially reclaimed by the landscape, formed what must have been a massive gateway. Beyond them lay the skeletal remains of a city, if city was even the right word for the alien architecture that sprawled before them. Nothing about it conformed to human design principles, angles that seemed to bend in impossible ways, structures that appeared both massive and delicate simultaneously. This civilization was spacefaring, Tamar said, examining one of the structures. These materials aren't native to this planet's composition. How old? Juno asked. Tamar ran her scanner over a nearby column. Preliminary estimate, at least 50,000 years. Maybe much older. They proceeded into the ruins, the signal growing stronger with each step. Eldon led them through winding passages between towering structures until they reached what appeared to be a central plaza. At its center stood a pillar of dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The signal's coming from here, Eldon said, approaching the pillar. It's some kind of beacon. Don't touch anything, Juno warned, but her words came too late. Eldon had already placed his hand on the surface of the pillar. He jerked back immediately, gasping. It's alive. Alive? Dr. Patel stepped forward. What do you mean? Not biologically, Eldon stammered. But, aware. I felt it. Like it was searching through my thoughts. The pillar began to pulse with a soft blue light that hadn't been visible before. Symbols appeared on its surface, flowing and changing. It's activated something, Tamar said, checking her instruments. Energy readings are spiking. Eldon stared at the symbols, transfixed. I can understand it now. It's telling a story. What kind of story? Juno asked, unease crawling up her spine. About what happened here. This wasn't their homeworld, it was an outpost. They came here to hide something. To contain it. Eldon's voice had taken on a strange cadence, almost monotone. They found something in the void between stars. Something ancient. They thought they could study it, use it, but it changed them. Changed them how? Nathaniel asked. It got inside them. Inside their minds. Made them see things, do things. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. The only solution was quarantine. A tremor ran through the ground beneath them. Around the plaza, more structures began to illuminate, systems dormant for millennia awakening at once. Captain, Tamar's voice was tight with alarm, something's happening. The energy readings are off the charts. We're leaving, Juno decided immediately. Back to the shuttle. Now. They turned to go, but Eldon remained rooted in place, staring at the pillar. The warning wasn't for us, he whispered. It was about us. Human curiosity. Our inability to leave things alone. Read. Juno grabbed his arm. We need to move. His eyes were unfocused when he turned to her. It's too late, Captain. Don't you feel it? It's already inside. A high-pitched whine filled the air, and the ground shook more violently. As they stumbled back toward the entrance, Juno saw more pillars rising from the ground, each beginning to pulse with the same eerie light. They reached the shuttle in record time, breathing hard. As they prepared for emergency takeoff, Juno tried to contact the Hephaestus. Static answered her. Communications are being blocked, Zara reported. Something's generating an interference field. The shuttle's engines roared to life, but as they began to ascend, the craft shuddered and struggled against an invisible force pulling it back down. Maximum thrust. Juno ordered. Tamar's fingers flew over the controls. We're caught in some kind of energy field. It's like a tractor beam, but nothing I've ever seen before. With a sickening lurch, the shuttle was dragged back to the surface, landing hard enough to throw them against their restraints. Outside the viewports, the landscape had changed, the ruins now pulsed with light, and something like mist coiled around the structures, moving with deliberate purpose. It doesn't want us to leave, Eldon said quietly. Not now that we've awakened it. Awakened what, exactly? Dr. Patel demanded. Eldon turned to them, and Juno saw something move behind his eyes, a shadow, a flicker of something that wasn't him. They called it the whisper, he said in that same flat voice. It came from the space between realities. They thought they could contain it here, on this dead world, far from any sentient life. For thousands of years, it slept, until we came. And now? Nathaniel asked. Eldon smiled, an expression that didn't reach his eyes. Now it wants to leave. Night fell on EX 2187, though the ruins continued to glow with unnatural light. Inside the shuttle, they gathered what data they could and tried repeatedly to break through the interference blocking their communications. Eldon had fallen silent, staring at the walls as if seeing through them. We need to try again at first light, Juno decided. The energy field might fluctuate. If we hit it with everything we've got during a weak moment, we might break free. And if we don't? Tamar asked. Juno had no answer for that. Later, as the others tried to rest, she found Dr. Patel examining Eldon, who had finally fallen asleep, or something like it. His eyes moved rapidly beneath closed lids. How is he? She asked quietly. Viraj shook his head. Physically, he's fine. Mentally, I don't know. His brain activity is like nothing I've ever seen. It's as if whole new neural pathways are forming. Could it be some kind of infection? A parasite? No signs of any biological agent. Whatever's affecting him is either psychological or... He hesitated. Or what? Or something we don't have the science to understand yet. A soft sound drew their attention. Eldon was mumbling in his sleep, words in a language neither of them recognized. Then, abruptly, he switched to English. They ignored every warning, he whispered. Just like you did. Just like you always will. Outside, the mist began to coalesce, forming shapes that pressed against the shuttle windows, faces, or something like faces, watching with eyes that weren't eyes at all. Juno felt a chill run through her as she realized the truth. They hadn't discovered these ruins by accident. They had been lured here. And whatever the ancient builders had tried to contain was now free, and it had plans of its own. The price of ignorance. Morning on EX 2187 brought no relief. The mist that had gathered around the shuttle during the night had solidified into a translucent barrier that shimmered with traces of the same blue energy emanating from the ruins. Attempts to penetrate it with the shuttle's weapons had proven futile, the energy simply absorbed the blasts, growing stronger with each attempt. Inside the shuttle, tensions were mounting. Eldon sat huddled in a corner, alternating between periods of catatonic silence and frantic scribbling on any surface he could find, star charts, coordinates, symbols that matched those on the pillars. We need to get back to the Hephaestus, Juno said, reviewing their dwindling options. Even if we can't break through the barrier with the shuttle, maybe we can find a way to transmit a signal. Nathaniel nodded grimly. If we boost the comm array with power from life support, we might punch through the interference. It would mean reducing oxygen levels to critical for about 10 minutes, but... We do what we have to, Juno finished. She turned to Tamar. Can you rig it? The engineer ran calculations on her datapad. Maybe. But there's another problem. Whatever this energy field is, it started seeping into the shuttle systems. The environmental controls are already compromised. Dar. Patel looked up from where he was monitoring Eldon. That explains the headaches everyone's reporting. The air recyclers aren't functioning properly. Then we have less time than we thought, Juno said. Tamar, work on the comms. Nathaniel, help Dr. Patel prepare emergency medkits. We may need to go EVA if the life support fails completely. As the crew scrambled to their tasks, Juno approached Eldon. The wall beside him was covered in his scrawls, equations, diagrams, fragments of alien text. Read, she said softly. I need you with us. Whatever's happening to you, we need your expertise now more than ever. Eldon looked up, his eyes clearing briefly. Captain, he whispered. It's showing me things. The civilization that built this place, they weren't the first to find the whisper. It's ancient, older than stars. It travels from world to world, system to system. What does it want? To spread. To change. It doesn't think like we do. It doesn't want in the way we understand wanting. It just is. And part of what it is involves reshaping reality to match itself. A tremor ran through the shuttle, and the lights flickered. Outside, the barrier pulsed in response. Tamar. Juno called. How's that signal coming? Almost there, the engineer shouted back. But Captain, you should see this, the energy patterns are changing. It's like the field is learning. Before Juno could respond, Eldon grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. They're coming, he hissed. The others. The changed ones. Through the viewport, Juno saw movement at the edge of the ruins. Figures were approaching, humanoid in basic shape but wrong in ways that defied immediate comprehension. They moved with jerky, uncoordinated motions, as if their limbs weren't quite connected correctly. What the hell are those? Nathaniel had joined her at the window. They look almost human, Juno whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. The Asimov expedition. Headquarters mentioned they'd sent a team here years ago. Impossible, Nathaniel argued. No one could survive here that long without supplies. Eldon laughed, a hollow sound that wasn't his. Survive? They're not alive. Not anymore. They're vessels now. Extensions. The figures stopped at the edge of the barrier, pressing hands, or appendages that had once been hands, against it. Where they touched, the barrier thinned, allowing tendrils of mist to seep through toward the shuttle. We're out of time, Juno decided. Tamar, the signal. Ready, but we'll only get one shot before life support crashes completely. Do it. Tamar initiated the sequence. The shuttle's lights died immediately, emergency lighting casting everything in an eerie red glow. The comms array whined as it channeled power well beyond its design specifications. Outside, the barrier flickered as if disturbed by the transmission. Message away, Tamar confirmed, her face illuminated by her console's glow. Simple text burst. Warning about the situation, coordinates, quarantine recommendation. Now we pray someone's listening, Juno muttered. The shuttle systems began to fail in cascade. Environmental controls went first, followed by internal gravity. As they floated in the dimming emergency light, Dr. Patel's alarmed voice cut through the darkness. Captain. Something's happening to Reed. Eldon was convulsing, his body arching impossibly. When he opened his eyes, they glowed with the same blue light as the pillars. His voice, when it came, was layered with other sounds, other voices. We are the threshold, he said. We are the passage. Outside, the figures had pressed completely against the barrier, which was now thinning rapidly. The mist poured through in greater volume, coiling around the shuttle like searching tendrils. It's getting in. Tamar shouted as warning lights flashed across her console. Hull integrity compromised in multiple sections. Juno made the only decision left. Suits. Everyone, now. They scrambled for their environmental suits, helping each other seal helmets and check systems as the shuttle's atmosphere vented into space. Only Eldon remained where he was, seemingly unaffected by the vacuum, the blue light now emanating from his skin. We need to get to the Hephaestus, Juno said over the suit comms. It's our only chance. How? Nathaniel demanded. We can't fly the shuttle, and that barrier is still containing us. On foot, Juno replied, checking her suit's oxygen levels. The barrier seems to be focused on technology, not biological matter. If we leave everything behind, all equipment, all tech, we might pass through. It was a desperate plan, but they had no alternatives. They gathered minimal supplies, emergency rations, basic medical supplies, nothing electronic, and prepared to evacuate the shuttle. What about Reed? Dr. Patel asked, looking at the transformed linguist. Juno felt the weight of command press down on her. We can't take him. Whatever he's becoming, it's part of this thing now. As if in response to her words, Eldon turned toward them. You cannot leave, he said in that many-layered voice. You are bridges. Through you, we will reach beyond this prison. Like hell, Juno muttered, and gave the signal to move. They exited the airlock in pairs, pushing off from the shuttle toward the edge of the barrier where it seemed thinnest. Behind them, the shuttle was being enveloped by the mist, its metal skin now crawling with the same blue light that had infected the ruins. Through the viewport, they could see Eldon floating in the center of the cabin, arms outstretched as if in communion with something invisible. The barrier felt like thick gel as they pushed against it, resistant, but not solid. Juno led the way, forcing herself through by sheer determination. For a terrifying moment, she was suspended in blue light, feeling it press against her mind, searching for a way in. Then she was through, tumbling onto the dusty surface of the planet beyond. One by one, the others followed, Nathaniel, then Tamar, finally Dr. Patel. They lay on the ground, catching their breath, watching as the barrier closed behind them. It worked, Tamar said in disbelief. Not for long, Juno warned, pointing to the edge of the barrier, where the mist was already beginning to extend beyond its boundaries. We need to move. The trek back to where the Hephaestus waited in orbit would take hours. They needed to reach a clearing large enough for the ship to send down a shuttle. Their suit comms were offline, the electronics fried by their passage through the barrier, so they relied on hand signals and pre-planned procedures. They had covered less than a kilometer when Dr. Patel stumbled. Through his faceplate, Juno could see blood trickling from his nose, his eyes unfocused. He needs help, she signaled to Nathaniel. They stopped to examine the doctor. What they found turned Juno's blood cold. Small filaments of blue light were spreading beneath his skin from a tear in his suit she hadn't noticed before. Dr. Patel's eyes found hers, panic giving way to resignation. He signaled to her, leave me. Contaminated. Juno shook her head vehemently, but Viraj was already removing his helmet. In the thin atmosphere, his last words were barely audible. It's in my head, he gasped. Just like Reed. Go. Warn them. They had no choice but to continue. Viraj's sacrifice bought them precious time, but as they pushed forward across the barren landscape, Juno couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed, not physically, but mentally. Something was tracking them, riding their thoughts like a current. When they finally reached the clearing and managed to signal the Hephaestus with a mirror flashing in the sunlight, Juno almost wept with relief. The descent of the rescue shuttle was the most beautiful sight she'd ever seen. But their relief was short-lived. As they approached the orbiting mining vessel, Zara's voice crackled over the comm, filled with static and fear. Captain, something's wrong with the ship. After your transmission, systems started failing. Crew reporting, hallucinations. Blue light in the corridors. Horror dawned as Juno realized the truth. Their transmission hadn't just been a message, it had been a carrier. The whisper had used their signal to infect the Hephaestus. It's already spreading, she told the others as they prepared to dock. We didn't escape it, we helped it. Aboard the Hephaestus, chaos reigned. Half the crew were incapacitated, some catatonic, others violently delusional. The ship's systems flickered between normal operation and mysterious surges of power that didn't register on any instruments. And everywhere, in corners and shadows, the same blue mist they'd seen on the planet was beginning to form. It's using the ship's communication array, Tamar realized after examining the mainframe. It's already transmitted itself to at least 3 other vessels in the sector. Can we stop it? Juno asked, though she already knew the answer. Not conventionally, Nathaniel said grimly. But we can make sure it doesn't reach populated systems. He didn't need to elaborate. They all understood what needed to be done. Juno ordered the remaining unaffected crew to the escape pods. As acting captain, she would remain behind with volunteers, Nathaniel and Tamar, to ensure the final protocol was executed. The Hephaestus would be set on a course directly into EX 2187 Sun, its reactor rigged to detonate before impact. With luck, the extreme conditions would destroy whatever the ancient civilization had only managed to imprison. As they worked to override the ship's safety protocols, Juno accessed the corporate database, searching for information about the Asimov expedition. What she found confirmed her worst suspicions. Helios had known. Not everything, but enough. The Asimov team had sent warning signals before all contact was lost. Those warnings had been classified, buried under corporate security protocols, the planet flagged not as dangerous but as high-value target for unique resource extraction. Profit over people. Always. With the ship on its final course and the reactor set to overload, the three of them made their way to the last escape pod. They were almost there when Tamar stopped suddenly, her face contorting in pain. "Captain," she whispered, pointing to her temple where blue veins were beginning to spread. "I think I'm compromised." "We'll get you help once we're clear," Juno insisted, though they all knew it was a lie. Tamar shook her head. "No. I can feel it spreading. Thinking. It knows what we're planning." She backed away from the escape pod. "I'll make sure the reactor detonates as planned. You two go." Before they could argue, she sealed the corridor hatch between them. Through the small window, Juno could see determination in her eyes, even as the blue light began to consume them. Nathaniel pulled Juno toward the escape pod. "We have to go. Now." The pod ejected moments later, small thrusters pushing it away from the doomed mining vessel. Through the viewport, they watched as the Hephaestus grew smaller, its course steady toward the system's star. "Do you think it will work?" Nathaniel asked quietly. Juno stared at the shrinking ship. "I don't know. That thing survived 50,000 years imprisoned on a dead planet. But fire cleanses. It's the best chance we have." They fell silent, watching as the minutes ticked by. The ship was now a distant speck against the brightness of the star. "It should have detonated by now," Nathaniel observed, tension in his voice. Juno checked the chronometer. He was right, they were past the programmed detonation time. Had Tamar failed? Or had the entity somehow prevented the explosion? Then, suddenly, a flash of light, brighter than the star itself, bloomed in space. The shockwave hit their pod moments later, sending them tumbling through the void. Emergency systems stabilized them eventually, and when they regained visual, there was nothing left of the Hephaestus but scattered debris being pulled into the star's gravity well. "She did it," Juno whispered, offering a silent prayer for Tamar's soul. But their victory felt hollow. The final transmission logs showed that the whisper had already spread beyond their ship, carried on standard communication protocols to other vessels, other systems. They had stopped this outbreak, but how many more had already begun? The escape pod's limited communication system picked up a signal, a Helios corporate vessel responding to their emergency beacon. Rescue was coming, but Juno felt no relief. She knew what would happen next. Helios would classify everything, bury the evidence, continue operations. Profit above all. "We need to make sure someone knows the truth," she told Nathaniel, pulling out a data chip she'd downloaded from the ship's logs. "All of it. They'll silence us," he warned. "Corporate has ways. Then we make copies. We spread the word wide. We make sure they can't ignore it this time." Her face hardened with resolve. "Whatever it takes." The corporate vessel appeared on their scopes, closing rapidly. Juno tucked the data chip into a hidden compartment of her suit. They would have one chance to do this right. As the rescue ship moved into position above them, Juno couldn't help but glance back toward the distant planet, now barely visible. Had they truly destroyed the entity? Or merely scattered it, forcing it to begin again elsewhere? She didn't know. But she was certain of one thing: humanity's greed, its relentless push into the unknown without heeding warnings, would eventually lead them back to something like the Whisper. It was only a matter of time. The rescue ship's docking clamps engaged with their pod. The airlock cycled. Juno straightened her shoulders and prepared to face what came next. This battle was over, but the war for truth, and possibly humanity's survival, was just beginning. 5 years later, on the edge of settled space, a corporate survey vessel dropped out of FTL near an unmarked system. Its mission was classified, known only to the highest levels of Proxima Extraction Industries. "We've arrived at the coordinates," announced the navigator. Captain Marcus Way nodded, studying the unremarkable yellow star and its orbiting planets. "Any sign of the quarantine buoys?" "Negative, sir. If they were ever here, they're gone now." Way frowned. The mission brief had been specific: investigate the disappearance of 2 previous corporate expeditions, recover any valuable data or technology, assess resource potential. Standard procedure for abandoned claims. But there had been rumors, whispers among the deep space crews about this particular region of space. Some called it the graveyard. Others, the whispering dark. "Take us in," he ordered. "Standard approach to the 4th planet. And keep all channels open, I want to know if we pick up any signals." As the ship altered course, one of the sensor technicians suddenly straightened in her chair. "Sir, I'm detecting something unusual. A pattern in the background radiation." "What kind of pattern?" It's almost like a voice, sir." "But not quite." Way moved to her station, listening to the soft, rhythmic pulse coming through the speakers. Something about it made his skin crawl. "Should we report back before proceeding?" asked his first officer. Way hesitated, then shook his head. "No. Our orders are clear. We investigate, then report. Corporate doesn't like wasted trips." He straightened his uniform. "Continue approach." Outside the viewports, the stars seemed to flicker for a moment, as if something vast had passed between the ship and their light. But when Way looked again, everything appeared normal. Just his imagination, surely. The signal continued to pulse, growing stronger with each passing moment.